Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Taylors of Tech live on Twitch. Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you're having a good Sunday. And now it is officially. I think I've titled the Twitch stream this before, but it was before Worldwide Developers Conference event time had officially been launched. There were leakers claiming it was going to be June 1st, but it was actually June 22nd because everything's being pushed back these days. But yeah, now officially Worldwide Developers Conference is less than 30 days away, so get hyped, get excited, because there is still rumored to be a bunch of stuff that comes out, but also a lot of stuff we don't know much about in the first place. So, yeah, exactly. The first year we're all going to Worldwide Developers Conference together. We actually get to attend it in person on the live stream. But yeah, between the over ears, which the design we know very, very little about, so that should be somewhat surprising. Potentially the our MacBook launching. We've got AirTags, brand new product category we haven't seen before. HomePod Mini could be launching. iOS 14 has still a lot of mysteries about it. I think it's mostly going to be about stability and performance enhancements, not too much about features added. But man, people are getting pumped about jailbreaks all over again because of this uncover stuff. But I'm sorry, I haven't seen any jailbreak worth going through all the trouble yet. Maybe I'm alone in that department, but I still can't see it. Um, Kip says he got to see an iPhone SE in an Apple store today. You went to an Apple store that was open? That's cool. I haven't been to that many Apple store. I haven't heard of that many Apple stores, at least near me, opening or something. But um, we don't know when Battery Investor Day is, so I will be sure to make a video on it. I guarantee you the day they announce the date, there will be an EV video on it. I will be tweeting about it. Everyone's going to be losing their mind once we actually get a confirmed date, but we don't know what it is, so kind of pointless to speculate. But Mersey, thank you for the donation. Mess000, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub at 16 months as well. Jailbroke my device today, but I already regret it because I just can't find much to do. iOS 13 just did so much. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, everything I've seen with the jailbreak tweaks are very minor and very like, oh, I guess you can change that. But you have to go through all this work to, and all the tweaks and stuff a lot of people want cost money, and I'm just not willing to spend money on that kind of stuff. It's always so minor. I haven't seen anything that was so major. I was like, oh my god, I need that so bad. Um, the jailbreak is just holding people over till iOS 14. Yeah, it'll probably get a spiked amount of interest now because I know it works on iOS 13.5, but once iOS 14 comes out, I think everybody's just going to switch to that and then kind of forget about they kind of forget about it at the end of the day. Be like, oh yeah, jailbreak was a thing. Do you own any Apple shares? I know you don't own any Tesla shares, and would you buy any? I would. I would say though that now is not a great time to buy Apple or Tesla shares, just because they're at an all-time high. But I guess if you're planning on buying them for the long haul, it's fine. But no, we're slowly getting into the stock market game, just starting off with some cheaper stocks and a lot more mutual funds, some of which have Apple stock in them. So in a way, we have Apple stock. But yeah, um, now is not a great time to buy Apple or Tesla stock. But I guess the timing the market is, as Randy would say, timing the market doesn't matter as much as time in the market. But yeah, it's a finance topic. What if they announced Bedrock Edition Minecraft on Mac? That would be amazing. That would be so amazing that I'm almost convinced that is impossible and it will not happen. That would be funny. I probably maybe brought that up because I've been playing Minecraft. I did a whole, I think it was almost 2 hour Twitch stream right before this stream over on Talos of Gaming, also on Twitch. Stay tuned for that. But let's see. Microsoft is also pretty high. Java's better than Bedrock, and they have their pros and cons. I just figured out Netherite for the first time. I'm new at this, so cut me some slack. I haven't looked at Microsoft stock recently. Let me check. Um, they're really high, which is not great time to buy. But I mean, it's good if you bought them 4 years ago. Yeah, it's great. But we've been picking up a lot of stocks that are normally a lot higher, but are really, really low right now because of the pandemic. That's most of the stocks we've invested in, but and a lot of mutual funds, and we're not planning on selling any of them soon. What good features is going to happen in iOS 14? Is it just going to be like iOS 12, or is there going to be any good features? I think it can be like iOS 12 and have some good features. I just don't expect anything massive or groundbreaking. So I I'm anticipating that they're going to redesign a lot of the pop-ups, like phone calls aren't going to take up the whole display. Maybe low battery warning doesn't have to jump in the middle of the screen. It can just be a notification drop down like 20%, and you can still keep using your stuff. Or Siri could be a little drop down menu instead of filling up the entire display. Just little tweaks and things that iron things out. But for the most part, I think it's going to be about squashing bugs and making sure it works correctly on all the devices that got iOS 13. Um, so after iOS 14, there will be even less reason to jailbreak. Well, jailbreak, like hardcore jailbreakers, like very, very tiny tweaks and little things that most people don't care about. So they'll always have their reasons. I'm sure iOS 14 won't fix everything, but it's getting to the point where there's less and less reason to jailbreak. I mean, I've seen a lot of people that I've talked to for a long time that were like, I used to jailbreak, but stock iOS has gotten so good now that there's no reason to. Um, Customizable battery warnings. I don't know if it needs to be customizable. Does anyone like it to be a just giant pop up in the middle of the screen that turns off anything else you were working on? Hopefully, yeah, iPad OS 14 could be big if they had external monitor support kind of revamped to support 16 by 9 and not just a mirroring display, like actually let the cursor work and have a secondary screen. A lot of that probably would depend on third party software adoption to it and stuff like that. But yeah, iPad OS, you got to admit it was huge. Just like not even a year ago, iPad OS was not a thing. The iPads were still running iOS 12. And so much has changed since then. The home screen has changed. The mouse support's been added. Um, they've made it more and more. Now the Safari brings down the desktop version of websites. It was not even a year ago that iPads only brought the mobile blown up version from the iPhone on Safari. And it's finally been fixed. So there's a bunch of stuff they did with iPad OS. So I'm hoping that they can top it this year again. Can they let us change the color of notification circles? I'm sick of staring at a red bubble all day. See, that's a jailbreak thing. That would be someone would go through the work of resetting the phone and plugging it into a computer just so that they could jailbreak it, just so that they can change the little notification thing. I don't have to look at those all day because I get rid of them. You'll notice I have one on Twitch. I don't have the red dot on anything on my home screen. I have one on Twitch here. I'm not sure what's causing it. I think I just constantly get friend requests. Don't send me friend requests, by the way, just because it's a waste of your time. I'm not going to respond to them. But now it's gone. So all my emails are read immediately. I never let that number get too high. There's like two different kinds of people in the world, right? There's some people that will have like 100,000 unread emails, and then there's me who has zero and make sure to refresh pretty regularly. I actually make sure to refresh to see that I don't have any unread emails. Um, Not that I individually read each one. I usually just check them off and hit read. But most of them are ads anyway, or notification emails, like your export to YouTube succeeded, or here's a email, your weekend summary, or here's a coupon from this restaurant or something like that. You have 200,000 email. Oh, geez, and they're all YouTube notifications. Yeah, you can turn that off, by the way. If there's an email that I'm not interested in getting, I make sure to hit the unsubscribe thing. But some people are different. How are the badges outdated though? How are they outdated or just not needed to be fixed? Like, is there something wrong with having a red dot? Like, what's the problem? I really wish I can turn off notification bubbles on specific apps. You can. You can. You go to settings and go to notifications and you can turn it off on certain apps. You can go to each individual app and say, you cannot have a red dot on that app. Before y'all start requesting iOS 14 features, I think you should figure out how iOS works in the first place. They're not outdated, they're just old, but there isn't anything wrong with that. Some things I just don't think are broken. Some things it's like, don't bother fixing. Turn them all off. Yeah, you can turn them off. There's nothing wrong with turning them off. I think a lot of people have this predetermined notion that whenever they set up an app and it asks to allow notifications, you just instantly hit yes. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people have resulted with iOS notifications. Because I still see some people saying, like, iOS notifications suck. They still suck compared to Android. But as soon as I try an Android phone, which I will be trying an Android phone in a couple days, my OnePlus 8 is going to get here on Tuesday. So probably do a YouTube stream for that one. We'll see. Um, yeah, it's not that far away actually. It's just a couple hours out, but it's still going to take 2 days to get here. I don't know why. But you would like to get rid of the home bar? Yeah, that sounds like a jailbreakish kind of thing. It's something I've wanted, but I'm not going to go through all that effort to remove it. I never click allow notifications until I'm like, why am I not getting notifications for this app? The only time I hit allow notifications is like messaging apps, but that's about it. I can't think of many apps I have notifications on for, but I think everyone's accustomed to hitting allow every time, and then they just get bombarded with all these notifications that you're never going to use. Like, I never have had Twitter notifications on, ever. Even before I was like a well-known, not well-known, but like somewhat large tech YouTuber. What am I? I don't know whatever I do. Before I had an audience and stuff, still, Twitter was like, allow notifications? I was like, heck no. I don't want to be notified that there's new tweets or that people are like it. Like, if I want to see my Twitter notifications, I'll open Twitter. I don't want to see that crap on my lock screen. The lock screen is for like people trying to reach out to me. Discord? Heck no. Even the day one, first day I got Discord, I left notifications off. I don't need that on the lock screen. I'm just saying they should let you change your cursor color on iPadOS. Why not let us change the bubble color? Not worth the jailbreak trouble, though. Yeah, I mean, it's as I've said before, I'm usually not against that much customization. If you have customization, that's great, but overall, it's not as important as optimization. One thing that did look clean was the removal of the text underneath each app. It was a glitch in an older version of iOS. I would love that. I wish they would add that as an option. Once again, I will preface, not worth the jailbreak tweak, but because you would get used to it immediately. Like, it would be gone. It would be like, oh man, that looks so nice. And then an hour later, I don't see the text now unless I'm looking for them. I'm like, oh yeah, they do have labels on them. But honestly, like, if they were gone, I would get used to it pretty quickly. I allow on some things, but I severely limit it. For example, Reddit, I have it so it doesn't pop up on my lock screen. YouTube notifications, I have pop-ups off and hidden, but showing on lock screen. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't do it that way, but to each their own. To each their own. You're hyped for AirPods Studio. I'm very curious for the I/O mainly. Like, when it comes to over-ear AirPods, still weird that we're calling the over-ear AirPods, but whatever. The design, for one, we know very little about the design, so I'm excited to see that unveiling. It'll probably get a very cinematic, cool video showcasing the launch of it. And two, the I/O. Is there going to be no ports and it charges inductively, or will they be okay with having USB-C? I know it sounds crazy that maybe they'd have a headphone jack, but hey, the Mac still has a headphone jack, so it's not that crazy. If these things are catered to be more of a Mac accessory than an iPhone accessory, then I could see that making sense. No, I'm not saying I want that, but just some type of port to charge them with. I mean, the regular AirPods have Lightning plugs on them. I'd be kind of annoyed if you have to charge it via Lightning, just because I want Apple to get away from Lightning, and they're not yet. They still haven't. What about some mystery things? What if they launched Magic Mouse 3 and Magic Keyboard that have wireless charging instead of Lightning charging, or USB-C at least? Do you know if 13-inch MacBook Pro production is at smaller capacity than every other product, has 2 weeks shipping compared to normal 1 day? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's more than likely impacted by the pandemic. I mean, production might not be at full scale or something, or it's possible that a lot of people bought it because it just came out and there's a lot of hype leading up to it. I mean, people like me were saying, don't buy it yet. Wait for the refresh to come out, and here it is. So it's possible it's demand. I don't know, though. Can you restructure the way you make your videos? Maybe it'd be better if you make higher quality vids less often. I've tried that, and I don't think I would like it, and I don't think my audience would like it, because I've seen channels that make higher quality videos less often. And you know what I notice? No one's commenting on the way they look. No one's commenting on the color correction. No one's commenting on the visuals. All the comments people make on channels that don't upload that often is responding to what they say. It's responding to the points they made in their video. So if at the end of the day, when you watch a video, the main takeaway is the opinions, not necessarily the cutaway shots or the B-roll, why put so much effort and why put so much work into something that people just kind of gloss over and don't really comment on? And personally, I just don't like working on projects for multiple days at a time. I've always kind of wanted to be like, someone's going to watch this video, think about it a little bit, and then move on with their day. So why spend a week working on this one video that someone's going to watch for 5 minutes and be like, okay, I'm done, or I'm going to get bored of this topic and bit. So why commit so much to a subject or a topic that people aren't really going to think that deeply about in the first place? So I think the magic comes from when you efficiently find a way to put enough time that it's watchable, enough time that it's got some funny moments, it's got some informative moments, maybe you learn something, maybe you think different, and then you're done. And I didn't put, hours and hours of work into one cutaway shot. So we mutually benefit. So it takes me like an hour and a half to produce that video that you enjoy, and I get to do it on a daily basis. That way there's more content. People get to enjoy videos coming out on a daily basis. There's more subjects. There's more insight. I think more opinions are shed. More thoughts are brought up, and more people are provoked. And yeah, okay, you don't get sexy B-roll, but there's plenty of YouTubers providing that. I'm just trying to emphasize a little bit more on the substance of the video, which is what you say and what you're talking about, instead of just, wow, he's really good with the camera. So, yeah, I have a Patreon, but it's basically just for Discord. Fables, thank you for the 50 bits. Thoughts on the 3 becoming cheaper when the standard 40K Y comes out, and then the 3 plus Y being reduced further in price when the 40K Cybertruck releases could push the Model 3 closer to 25/30K EV Europe would love. I think, I don't know. My prediction is that the Model 3 is not going to get that much cheaper anytime soon, mainly because they probably want to wait for their new battery chemistry first. And I don't really know when they're going to roll that out, but I do know that once they find a way to produce the batteries more affordably and they're able to make them at more efficient speeds, then they're probably just going to profit off of that lowered manufacturing costs. They're not going to instantly lower the price for the consumer because Tesla wants to remain profitable primarily. And they don't have a demand problem. That's the thing. If you're lowering the price of your EV, you're trying to increase your demand, which means if we're lowering the price of the car, we're ready to produce more of them. We're ready to produce them at larger scales. That's what happens when you lower your car price. And I don't think they are. The biggest problem with EV production in Teslas right now is not actually the range, and it's honestly not even the price. I know a lot of you think of it that way because it's so expensive and you feel like you can't afford one yet and you want it to get cheaper so that you can get it. I'm in that boat too. I don't have one and I want one and I wish they were cheaper. So I completely get that mindset, but I also have to look at it from Tesla's perspective. They don't have a demand problem. They're selling every single car they produce, and they're pumping these things out as fast as they can. So I think they're okay with the prices they're at right now. They just want to get to a point where they're capable of producing more. Then they can start lowering their Then they can start lowering their prices. So I think that's the bigger issue they have right now. It's not necessarily like we got to get more people switching to electric. It's just we got to find a way to produce batteries effectively enough that we can lower the price of the car by that much. So I don't think the Model 3 standard range is going to drop in price when the Model Y standard range comes out. My guess is that the standard range Model Y is going to be more expensive than originally promised. I know that there's huge profit on the Model Y right now. I'm not entirely sure when they're going to launch the standard range Model Y. Maybe it'll be end of this year. Maybe they'll wait, like they said, until early 2021. But I feel like it's going to be like $43,000 or $44,000 when it launches, or they'll do a standard range plus thing. So it'll still stay a little bit above the Model 3, and Cybertruck is a whole new thing. So I don't know. Pizza Man donated 10 bits. I want the Magic Keyboard 3 to have a touch bar. It kind of... Oh, the Magic Keyboard... Okay, I thought you were talking about the iPad. See, this is what's so confusing about Apple and their Magic Keyboard names. Yeah, I agree. I don't even care if I have to charge it once every 3 days or something. But yeah, if the Magic Keyboard just had a touch bar on the top that I could use with my iMac, that would be fantastic. I would love that. No, we don't have a Nest thermostat. We bought kind of a cheaper house that had kind of dated uh, air conditioning system. So it wasn't like it didn't have really the smart stuff. And I've looked into getting the smart thermostats, and it's very expensive, and it wouldn't make that big a difference for us anyway. So that's why we haven't. That's why we haven't got any of the smart stuff. Let's see. 50 bits from Fables. Are you personally waiting for the new battery tech before you buy your 3/Y EV? If you had the money today, would you wait? I don't think so. At the end of the day, like the current battery technology is good enough for my needs because we were looking at our driving habits more recently, especially given me and my wife work from home now. So there's very little driving we do, and we've been using better what's it called? Better Route Planner, the app, and you can plug in the exact Tesla you want and put in like trips with stops, and it will tell you where you have to supercharge. And from the reviews I'm reading of it, people are saying it's pretty accurate. In fact, a lot of people are saying a better route planner. That's what it is, and people have been saying like it's more accurate or it's more spot on than the Tesla's in map navigation system. So I plugged in a couple of not like daily things we do, but occasional like times we drive further than normal. And I was like, we visit these friends here and this family here, and how many stops would that take? And I plugged that in with the standard range Model 3, and I was like, this is fine. Like the difference between the 35K Model 3 and $50,000 long range Model 3 shaves like an hour off the road trip, like an hour, and you spend an extra 15 grand to shave off an hour from a road trip. I'm like, really? That much? I don't. I was like, that doesn't seem worth it to me. So, yeah, I think I'd be happy with that. And I don't really worry that much about the degradation because the battery apparently doesn't need to be serviced now until it reaches, somewhere around 300,000 to 500,000 miles. That's where our current battery tech is. The redesigned battery chemistry, they want to get it to like a million miles. But the truth is, I've never put that many miles on a car in my life. I bought my Sonata used, and it has like 150,000 miles on it, and it's 12 years old. It's just I'm not a road tripper. We don't do road trips, and I don't drive far for work or anything like that. So it's like not necessary. So I don't think I would wait for the new battery chemistry because the truth is 3 years from now the battery chemistry will be even better. So you can always wait for better batteries or better technology to be available. But eventually you just have to decide when you're ready and just commit to it when the product makes sense to you. So yeah, I think if we had the money now we would do it now, most likely. Did you make a 200K special? No, we didn't. I don't really consider it. Thank you for the bit, by the way. I don't really consider doing big specials unless we add a digit. So that's, I'll do one for 1 million, but if we're just 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, I don't, that's not a big enough milestone to me. Let's see. What is it, Raider? Well, someone just brought in a bunch of viewers from another stream, but they're not saying anything. So welcome to those who are watching. Thanks for joining. Will the iPad get a calculator? My God. Top wish list for the iPad, please. Can we get a weather app in calculator? They bought a weather company, but they still can't put weather on the iPad. It's a widget, but it's not a dedicated app. If you tap on the widget, it takes you to a web page. It's stupid. I hate that. Let's see. What color are you leaning towards? I love Tesla's blue. Honestly, not saying this because it's the cheapest, but I've seen the white Teslas, and I think the white ones look really solid. And given the EV channel is all kind of embracing the white Tailosive T, I think that would go with it pretty well. So I'm actually very comfortable with the white model. Let's see. I feel like smart home stuff really didn't take off as much as people thought it would. Well, it's just not super helpful. It's nifty. Like I have smart bulbs and I have smart speakers and that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's very expensive and it doesn't really save you that much time. I mean, the Nest thermostat is like cool. You can customize what temperature is it, but when you're home all day, you don't really need to control it from the phone. I mean, I can just walk up to it. It's like the smart bulbs you have. How much time does that really save you? Because a light switch is pretty dang fast. And when you set up a smart bulb, you have to set up an account, you have to download a third party app, and that third party app requires a password. So now to change your light bulb, you need to enter a password that you can't remember because you set up the account months ago. It's so like it makes a very very simple thing that used to be like bulb in, light switch on, off, done. It something that used to be fairly simple becomes fairly complicated. Okay, let's see. I'm in the UK and have serious doubts about full self-driving. Our roads are so small, roundabouts are confusing enough to people, let alone a car that can't see any lines. Elon is a ridiculously smart man, getting 0% loans off people for a few gimmicky features for $7,000. Standard autopilot is good enough. Found a cool channel in the UK called Just Tesla. Yeah, I know the UK roads are messy. I watch Tesla Driver, and he's in the UK, and he does a lot of Tesla videos. Thank you for the dono, but I think the key to it is the neural net. So the point being that the more cars on the road that are using autopilot, the more data they have, the smarter they can make the neural net and the better they can make it. So no, I don't think it will come out this year, and I don't think it'll come out next year. But my point is whoever comes out with full self-driving first will be Tesla. Whenever full self-driving is possible, Tesla will be there first, and they're going to be there years before everybody else because they have the data. And also, it's not a 0% loan necessarily because the money that people spend on full self-driving gets put into a trust. And Tesla has some access to that, but not 100%. So if someone buys full self-driving for $7,000, Tesla doesn't instantly get $7,000. They get about half of that. They get about $3,000 because half of the features of full self-driving are available, but they also understand that half of the features that are promised with full self-driving are not available, so they don't count that towards their revenue. Same thing like with Tesla reservations. Tesla doesn't get any of that money. So all the people, there were like over 600,000 people that reserved a Cybertruck, each one $100. You can do the math. That's a lot of money. Tesla doesn't get to acknowledge any of that money. That just gets put into a trust. They can't access it, and that's how it's fully refundable, and Tesla doesn't get in trouble. Same with like Roadster reservations. Tesla does not get to reflect Roadster reservations as revenue. So it's not really a loan if they can't use that money for anything, and people can pull it back whenever they want to. So like if someone reserved a Founders Edition Roadster for $250,000, Tesla doesn't get to take that money and spend it on whatever they want. It just sits. So it's kind of unfair to call it a loan. And when they add more features to full self-driving, they accumulate a little bit more of the money that's been, put into trusts of full self-driving. And that's to motivate them. I think it's really smart because it means that it encourages the software teams to roll out features and to get them out, because once those features roll out and people can start utilizing them, Tesla gets to recognize that revenue and be like, okay, we've made that money now. But they haven't taken 100% of it. They still take a little bit at a time. White ones look really good too, just not where I live. I already know it'll be dirty, but I saw a blue Model Y a few weeks ago and it looks so good. I don't love the blue on the Model Y. Maybe it looks better in person, but the pictures I've seen, I'm not about the blue. Apple router with special like air features and it would look amazing. Didn't Apple used to make routers and they stopped doing that? What are people saying that'll come back? Let's see. Just watching that channel today too. I'm in the UK also, and I think full self-driving is almost an impossibility here. Yeah, I mean, I'm saying it will easily be years and years away. In the UK, probably years behind us, but it's basically the way they're training the neural net. I recommend watching what's his name, Solving the Money Problem. Look up the Solving the Money Problem about robo-taxis and how they're training the neural net to get better at driving. Basically, they take the best drivers' data and learn from it over time. So basically, if a human is capable of doing it, the Tesla will be capable of doing it. That's essentially where they want to get to. Yes, it will take a long time, but I wouldn't quite say impossible, but I will say it's very, very far off. Auto park is unfair. I think auto park is severely limited, mainly because a lot of people don't know this, but AutoPark only uses the radar sensors and ultrasonic sensors. AutoPark has not been updated to take advantage of any camera systems. And I think that makes AutoPark severely perform horribly. That's why it performs so poorly now. But if they wanted to update AutoPark to support the cameras, I bet it would work way better. And for whatever reason, they still haven't. Pizza Man donated 10 bits. Will you be getting HBO Max this week? I don't. I have no idea what is on HBO Max that I'm supposed to be interested in, but I haven't seen anything that's coming out that looks interesting for HBO Max. So, no. I'm trying to cut out streaming services as much as possible, so I'm going to not sign up for them as soon as they come out. I love how a lot of people love the Roadster, and me and a few other techies just get annoyed by its large bezels on the screen. You're not alone, YOLO. Those annoy me too. There are also certain EU regulations that limit full self-driving here. Maybe after Brexit that'll change. I've heard that too. I've heard the EU has limitations on how far the steering wheel can turn, so that really limits what they can do. Is that because they can't or are too smart to take all the money? No, I mean, if Tesla wanted to take all of the full self-driving money, they could. They just choose not to. Let's see. Apologies if you've already answered this, but what kind of camera do you use? It's great. This is a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. It's a really good deal, really solid camera. I love Blackmagics. I use a Blackmagic Ursa Mini for my tech videos, and it's right off camera here. I can show you. It's a big boy. Look at this thing. It's got the battery pack on it and everything. I'm going to sit on my phone here. I've actually not been very nice to this camera. It's seen better days. I bought it used. The lens I bought, but it does 4K at 60. It records onto CFast cards. It's really gotten beat up over the years, honestly. This battery is enormous, though. Look at this. This back half was like $300, and that's just a battery that you charge on itself, and then it slides in here. This thing is huge. I mean, look at, here's my iPhone 11 Pro Max, and here's my Blackmagic battery. It's nothing in comparison to the battery on this thing. This thing has a tiny battery. The Pocket Cinema camera, they call it that because it's supposed to fit in your pocket, but it really doesn't. It's too big for your pocket. But it's much more compact. It still shoots all the same resolutions and all the same frame rates as this camera does. It's just newer, so they're able to basically take this camera and shrink it down into a camera that, I can't show you this one, but it's about this big. It's like a DSLR, basically. And they have manual lenses that come on and off. And this is a 18 to 35 millimeter Sigma lens that mainly doesn't get touched at all because my cameras just sit and point at me. But yeah, it's almost transparent. You can see through it a little bit. There's a little bit of light going through it, and that's just fans. There's just fans in here keeping it cool whenever it turns on. And has a pretty large display that folds out. And this is a touch screen that you can turn on and touch and interact with. But I honestly need a new tripod because there was one time I put my camera out in the living room to film an EV video, and the tripod leg gave out because I don't think it's meant to hold a camera this big. It is big chunk camera, yes. And the tripod fell over, and this tripod and this camera, this whole giant thing was like 5.5 feet off the ground and just completely tipped over and landed on the hard floor. And it still works fine. Nothing's wrong with it. But it definitely got scratched up. So there's a lot of broken knobs and things not working. And this thing is really flimsy, not as rigid as it used to be, but it still works. So you'll find that when it comes to my Apple tech, I always want the latest, greatest thing. But when it comes to camera equipment, I will settle with the cheapest, crappiest, chonky little cameras I can find. So this one was a really good deal, though. I think you can get these for like $1,000. And that may seem like a lot for some of you, but for the image quality it produces, it's fantastic. And yes, you can shoot 4K at 60 on it. And this one also has a HDMI output, which is why it's so much better for live streaming. That's why I use this camera for Twitch streams. But this does not. This was too old for HDMI, so you have to use SDI out, and you have to use a bunch of different cables and equipment to get this thing to plug into the computer and register it. But it can be done. when I do my unboxing streams, I have both of these cameras plugged in. But I have a new setup here, so I'm actually not sure how I'm going to do the live unboxing. Maybe I'll have to do an edited video. Oh, I didn't think about that until now. Let's see. 10 bits from Gabberjon. Biggest wish for iOS 14? My biggest wish comes down to just wanting the pop-ups to become notifications. I don't think there should be any pop-up in iOS. Like when you get an alert that says like email settings, enter your password, or 10% battery, or a phone call, or Siri. Like everything that covers up the whole display so you can't interact with it should just be redesigned into a drop-down notification. So you just get a little drop-down, 20% battery, or enter the password, and just there's a way better way they could handle all these pop-ups, but it feels very dated that that's still the way they're handling it. Kind of how, like, I love the little Apple Pencil animation when you dock your Apple Pencil with your iPad. It's just click, and then the little drop-down thing shows your percentage, and then it goes away. If they did that with other stuff, it would be so much more smooth. Same with phone calls and stuff like that, but I can only wish. The depressing thing about iOS wish lists, for me at least, is that they always appear to be the same things every year. I wish they would add this. I wish they would add this. I wish they would add this. And it just doesn't change. Why does Nick have so much trouble fitting in the Model 3? The Just Tesla channel guy is 6'7" and fits fine. His words, not mine. I think there's some type of something we should acknowledge for EV people, but there's something called owner's bias that I feel like not enough channels talk about, mainly because I just made that up on the spot. I will talk about it eventually when I have a Tesla. I don't know when that's going to be, but let me just put this back on the tripod. Hopefully it doesn't fall over. Owner's bias is that someone who buys a car, an expensive car particularly, they have a lot of money invested into it, and they have a lot of committed money and time put into this car now because, insurance and paperwork and registration. They don't want to admit that they made the wrong decision. That's a very hard thing to do when you've spent this much money on a car. No one wants to sit inside a car they spent $50,000 to $60,000 in and be like, this was a mistake. I regret that. It doesn't sound right. So there's an owner's bias of like, well, I bought it. I'm committed to it now. I can't back out. So I better just argue why it's good, and I better just focus on the good things and not talk about the bad things. And there's channels that try to combat that best they can, but ultimately I think it's a subconscious thing. I think everyone has it in the back of their head of like, well, I can't say I regret this because I've invested so much, because it's just, you feel stupid admitting that it was a wrong choice if you're this deep into the investment. So yeah, I mean, I remember riding around in the Model 3 with Nick, and it was fine for him. I just don't think it was good for anyone in the back seat, because he would basically have to push the driver's seat back really, really far. He could fit in it, but it was definitely pushing it a little bit. It was pushing. It was definitely reaching the limits of what he could comfortably sit in. And it was especially not good for anyone in the back seat because he had to push his driver's seat back so far. So, no, it's doable, but it's flexible. It's not like it's impossible if you're a tall person, but I completely admit that for someone his size, getting into a car that sits that low to the ground is probably very inconvenient. So he wouldn't want a Tesla like a Model 3 because he has to basically, it's almost like for Nick sitting down on the floor. It's like getting onto the floor to get into that car. So no wonder he wants something like a Model X or a Cybertruck just because it sits higher off the ground. When you're that tall, you have to go a lot further. I'm kind of tall. I'm not super tall. Last we measured, I was almost exactly 6 foot. So 5'11" or 6 foot, whatever you want to say. But I drove around the Model 3 and it felt perfectly comfortable to me. So I'm not worried about the height thing. Let's see, who's this? I can't read on this new display I'm using right now. It's hard to read. Brownie? Sorry if I get that wrong. Brownie, I'm thinking about buying iPhone 12 Pro in September, but recently I found out that my 5K iMac late 2015 has screen retention issue, temporarily screen burn-in, and was thinking about replacing it with a MacBook Pro 15-inch plus GPU plus external monitor. I currently use iPhone XS. Which option should be the best? Man, I would encourage you to not go with the 15-inch MacBook Pro if possible. eGPUs are typically not not that helpful and not that powerful in the long term. But I guess your iMac sounds like it is in need of replacement, and you haven't said anything bad about your 10s. So I guess it comes down to like the biggest things you'll get with upgrading is better battery life because the 10s does not have a great battery, um, and new design. That's I think a lot of what you're getting with the 12 Pro is the squared off edges, the thinner bezels, thinner notch. Uh, you'll have a much better CPU, but I guess it depends what you use your phone for. To me, it sounds like your iMac is in need of replacing, so I would prioritize that. But yeah, I would say get a 16-inch MacBook Pro if possible. That would be better than MacBook Pro 15-inch with eGPU. I don't know what refurbished prices you're looking at. Maybe it's not possible to go 16-inch, but I don't recommend the eGPUs. From what I've seen, they're not that promising. Um, let's see. How tall is Nick? That's a good question. I think he's 6'7". He's definitely taller than me. He's about a foot taller than the Empire State Building, something like that. But yeah, it's definitely in the higher, above 6.5 feet for sure. He's one of the few friends I literally have to look up to. It's funny because me, Nick, and Randy are all different ages, obviously, and we're all different heights. But the Randy is the oldest and the shortest. I am in between them, and I'm also in between them in age. And Nick is the youngest, and he's also the tallest. So it's kind of backwards in that way. 6 foot gang. The car does have a really good feature. When you enter the seat, it will be all the way back and steering wheel all the way forward to maximize space when entering it. Yeah, the ease of entry feature. I've seen that in the videos. What year MacBook Pro? 2018, 2019. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how much cheaper the 2018 and 2019 MacBook Pros are, to be honest with you. And I really like the 16-inch MacBook Pro when I use that. The display was noticeably better and bigger, and the thermals perform better. The keyboard's a lot more reliable than the butterfly keyboard. Yeah, Nick is younger than me by 7 months, I think. We were born in the same year, but I was born in February and he was born in September. So there's a good 7 months between us there. So yeah, he's 21 right now, and I'm 22. But Randy's Boomerville. He's way older than us. Tech podcasts and EV podcasts were really fun. We recorded them last Friday, so they're particularly dated now. But we had a lot of fun in the last couple podcasts. We made a lot of off-topic jokes, and just we were really goofy and silly in the next two podcasts. So those should be dropping tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Would you recommend going with a 13-inch MacBook Pro on boot camp with an eGPU for gaming? Why/why not? Anyone who's interested in gaming should not be looking at Apple hardware. If that's the primary purpose of the machine, do not be buying a Mac. If anything, you should look for a really, really good PC, and then if you want just Apple ecosystem stuff, get an iPad or get a cheap MacBook somewhere else. But don't expect things like the 13-inch MacBook Pro with Boot Camp and an eGPU to be good at gaming, because ultimately, saying apples can't game is like saying a car can't go backwards. A car can go backwards, just not that well. It's not designed to. Macs are kind of the same way. They can game, not very well though. I've done boot camp on my iMac Pro, which has a very powerful GPU and CPU, and it was still okay, because there's a lot of driver incompatibility and things that, even though you're running Windows, it still doesn't technically handle it that well. So I wouldn't recommend it. Some people can make it work better than others, but I've tried it myself, and I just feel like even when you put Windows 10 on a Mac, there's a bunch of things that don't work correctly. You'll run into Wi-Fi problems, Bluetooth problems, games not running correctly, even though they should be. There's just a lot of confusion that goes on between the operating system and the hardware when you boot camp. So I don't think you should. If you're looking for something good at gaming, please don't buy a Mac. I haven't had any issues with my 10s. I simply thought about upgrading to 12 Pro just because of the design and better cameras. I live in Poland, and 16-inch MacBook Pro is expensive. I know what F means. Don't worry about it. It costs about $11,000. I don't know what that is for the base model, but okay. then yeah, I would say do whatever you need to do to your iMac to update that if you haven't had any issues with your 10s. If you're happy with that, just stick to it. I've just been binging the podcast today. Can't wait for the next ones now. There was a lot of moments in the next couple podcasts where we just started laughing uncontrollably for like a solid couple minutes, and it took us a while to get back on topic. So stay tuned for that. Fables donated 50 bits again. Thank you very much. Would you do a try stream with Nick and Randy podcast style, then maybe at the end take a few subjects from chat that were donated or interesting enough to end the stream off, or even let us ask you a few questions that you can add on to your podcasts? Yeah, Twitter is a good place to ask. We're There's so many technical things that prevent us from doing like a try stream, but it would be a lot more doable if the Taylosive podcast channel was monetized. It's not yet, so we can't do super chat, and all the videos and all the watch time we're getting off of the channel right now makes $0. We don't make any money off of that, so it's all still monetized via the sponsors and the ads that are placed in the podcast. I know they're annoying, but that's the only way to get paid. So that's kind of the only way to do it right now. Once we start monetizing that channel, but I think we're actually going to hit 4,000 hours before we hit 1,000 subscribers. So I'm not going to ask you to do it. This is the only reason I'm asking people to subscribe, is because it allows us to be monetized once we hit 1,000. But after that, I promise I don't care. I don't care if it hits 2,000 subscribers. I don't care if it hits 1,000,000 subscribers. It's just about hitting that first milestone so that we can at least monetize it. I don't really care about subscriber milestones in the grand scheme of things, but we would like to do something like that. It would be a lot easier though if the channel was monetized and we could just do like a, I don't know. I mean, we kind of like the dynamic we have because me, Nick, and Randy don't get to talk much outside of the podcast anyway. So that one weekly podcast is when we get to just share our thoughts and talk about how we're feeling and what we're thinking in tech that week. So if we integrate chat, then we have to kind of share the topics and share the conversation with others. And we kind of enjoy having it just between us. But I get what you're saying. Perhaps having a segment where we just let other people on. Maybe if we did live streams, but we made it like members only or super chat only or something like that. So it's like the only way to get your question answered is if you super chat, and it's appropriate, obviously. Like we're not going to answer questions that are, inappropriate and that kind of thing. So we might do something like that in the future. I don't know. But again, I'm not really managing the podcast very much. Nick and Randy basically handle everything, mostly Nick. And I just kind of show up once a week. So kind of a guest on my own podcast. I'm sorry you don't get paid for the podcast. They truly are great. We do get paid a little bit from the ads that Spreaker puts in them on the podcast apps like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So we do get paid, but just not for the YouTube ones yet. Once the Taylosive podcast hits 1,000 subscribers, then we can get paid. So we're close. We're on track to get there in a couple months, probably 2 or 3 months. I'm just going to sub to your podcast just to get monetized. Where do I sub? It's just called Taylosive Podcast on YouTube. Yeah, we'll do an OnlyFans account next. Exactly. Honestly, I've been playing games occasionally. I have an external SSD with Windows 10 on it and custom drivers from bootcampdrivers.com. And with Radeon R9 M3952 gigs, I'm getting about 40-ish FPS in Red Dead Redemption 2 and 1080p on medium. Wow, that was a whirlwind to read. So yeah, like I said, some people can make it work for them on Mac, but I haven't had much success with it. Best personal photo editing app, and do you think the native Photos app will be updated in iOS 14? Yeah, I'm sure they'll do something with Photos. I don't know what it'll be, but they'll do something. They always do something with it. Best personal photo editing, I have to say Over, because it's free. There is a paid version of it that accesses a bunch more stuff, but for the most part, I've been recommending it for years. I've been using Over for my video thumbnails ever since 2015, I think, and I'm still using them 5 years later, and they work great. They update their apps to support the latest hardware very, very quickly. In fact, when I got my Magic keyboard with trackpad support, Over was already updated for it, even though I got that thing on like day one. I got it a lot earlier than everyone else. So yeah, they are very quick to update their app. They're very responsive, very customizable, but at the same time user-friendly, which is, I think, the perfect balance when making software. A lot of software is intentionally complicated and intricate so it can be customizable and look professional, but I don't like that. If you can make it super customizable but user friendly at the same time, then you got a solid app. So that's why I like Over. I'd recommend that. Pizza Man donated, thank you, and asked, what is my dream desk setup? I'm pretty dang close with this thing. I don't know if I would change much about this desk. It's in standing mode right now. I've been doing a stand-up in today's work, so I did my gaming stream standing up. I edited the tech video and the EV video standing up just because I hadn't used it for a while. So, yeah, the copyright strikes have expired, so I don't have any active copyright strikes. But basically, YouTube system and copyright law is so dated that like any channel you watch right now, more than likely, could get copyright striked at any moment, and could get taken down in a heartbeat if someone abused the system in a certain way. But since copyright law is on their side, they can get away with it. You know, there's a lot of people that commented on my video about like, well, you don't understand copyright law, and I'm like, no, I think I get how dated copyright law is, but my point is the largest channels on the platform are not following those rules. And with their logic, I can copyright strike channels with tens and hundreds of millions of subscribers because of how dated these laws are and how people aren't following them. So the fact that YouTube exists and channels are able to make what they make is kind of mind-boggling, given the laws have still not been changed and YouTube still allows people to punish other channels because of these dated laws. Like, it's crazy. Let's see. Why is Nick so loud? I don't know why Nick is so loud. Ask him. Subscribe to your podcast. How many subs you got? I think we're nearing 600. So we've got like 400 subscribers left to go. But then we don't even have to stay above 1,000 subscribers. So even if we hit 1,000, then we can apply for monetization. And then once we get approved, you can unsub. It's fine. Don't worry about it. The whole YouTube system is extremely fragile. I don't know how channels exist. It's crazy. Do you think there will be a new iMac announced at WWDC? Apparently there's a new iMac ready to go right now. It just hasn't been announced yet. You know, this is actually the last week for AirPods to come out. Didn't John Prosser say AirPods Gen 3 were coming out this month? Originally, he said they would come out with the new MacBook Pro, and that didn't happen. But tomorrow is the last Monday of the month. And Monday and Wednesday is when they normally do their site refreshes. So if we don't get new AirPods in the next week, I guess that was just incorrect. I don't know what report he was going off of or what evidence he had, but that's, I don't, I haven't seen any new AirPods. Not sure when to expect those, but they're not there. They've updated Native Photos app in every single iOS. What did they add last? Didn't they add like the walk around feature? No, that was Maps. I feel like they added something to Photos last year. Maybe it was some search feature or something like that. But yeah, I don't know if they'll announce a new iMac redesign, but I know that there's a new website refresh iMac rumored. People have been talking about a new, and it would look identical. Don't expect anything big. Maybe a new CPU, but even that isn't for sure. More than likely, it's just storage upgrades because the iMac lineup has extremely dated storage configurations right now. Excuse me. Fables donated 60 bits. Thank you very much. Any tips on refraining from buying things plus saving? I'm on good money for my age and want to save for a house or a Tesla, but really stuck at it. Need to learn I shouldn't just buy things because I can't afford them. Yeah, that's a mental trick. I don't know if there's a good solution to it. I guess try to think of how you'll feel about that product after owning it for a year. Think about how excited you were for the products you have currently and how little excitement you have for them now. That's something I try to remind myself currently about, is like, I get really, really hyped up for owning a Tesla one day. That's going to be so exciting. But also imagine after a few months, that's just going to become your car, or that's just going to become your phone, or that's just going to become your tablet, and you won't even think about it. So that's how I've started to return things more often and not hang on to things as much as I used to, because I've realized, like, should I have an iPhone 11 and 11 Pro so I can switch between them and stuff? But it's like, yeah, I did that with the 10R and the 10S Max, and eventually the 10R just became a phone that sat on my desk all the time. And it's like 95% of its life, it was just sitting there doing nothing. So don't spend your money on things that are just going to be sitting around and not being appreciated. So there's not a real easy trick to convince yourself otherwise, but just remember that a lot of money spent on tech and gadgets and stuff like that can just be unappreciated, and you don't even think about it once you have it, because there will always be another piece of tech on the horizon, something else coming out later, and it's always there's always going to be another greater thing eventually. The ultra wide angle lens of the iPad changed. How did it change? Changed H? I mean, it's not the same ultra wide lens as the iPhone 11, but I'm just ready for the 12 Pro Max so I can finally get Face ID back. I've somehow managed to so far have no Face ID on my 10s Max. Face ID stopped working back in March. Dude, that's not okay. That's not good. Have you contacted Apple about that? I know they don't have stores open right now, but you should be able to get that replaced. Oh, it changed. The ultra-wide angle lens of the iPad Pro changed your life. Yeah, that made a fundamental difference forever. Everything changed once the Fire Nation attacked. This is the true apple shape. This is an apple bottle. I bought this at the visitor center in Cupertino a few years ago. It's kind of broken, though. There's a little metal splitting, but I like it. It's high quality. Indescribable change brought with ultra-wide, I know. Okay. Well, it's getting hot in here, so I'm going to stop. But I'm very excited for Worldwide Developers Conference. Thank you all for watching, for your Twitch Primes and your bits. And stay tuned for tomorrow's content. I will see you all later. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.